Welcome to Wrapping Things Up, the podcast where we tie up the loose ends on all things packaging, so you walk away with solutions. Coming up on today's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrapping Things Up. My name is Meredith Denning, and today I am here with Mr. Hunter Wessel. How are you, Hunter?
I'm doing good.
Oh, we're so excited to have you on the pod today.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I would love for you to just give us a little intro about yourself. Tell us what you do. You work here at Viking. How long have you been here?
So I'm a technical training and support specialist. I didn't start my career here that way. I started as a field service technician for about 3 years and then graduated into more of the training side of the company. Not only helping our customers learn our platforms, but also onboarding our new technicians. My day-to-day kind of generally looks like helping customers out over the phone with issues they might be having remotely. I might be teaching a class either in the field or in our facility. Working with our teams on the floor if they have a question and they don't know who to ask. Helping our technicians out in the field if they're on an install and they have a question.
You do it all.
A little bit of everything.
Well, that's good. I'm really pumped to talk about our topic today, which is specifically within preventative service and operator training and reducing downtime. So kind of going into the conversation about unplanned downtime, planned versus unplanned downtime. When you talk about downtime with customers, how do you define that? And is there a meaningful difference between planned downtime, unplanned downtime, or something else? How would you explain that?
There's kind of two sides to that question. So there's taking an action area approach, which is where you have a preventative maintenance visit. A technician will come in, audit your machine, go through it with a fine-tooth comb and see, are any parts starting to fail? Are there any efficiency issues in the machine? They might talk to you about spare parts, things that you should have on your shelf that you might not have yet. And then there's also the reactive side of that relationship where, you run the machine and you pump out a bunch of production, but then all of a sudden something breaks.
Yeah.
And now when something breaks, depending on the type of component that failed, a custom component could have up to, an 8 to 12 week lead time if it needs to be manufactured to order. If you're taking the action area approach of that, you knew that component was failing and now you already have one on order and you have a scheduled downtime with your maintenance team or another technician to come out on site to replace it. Versus if you're reactive to that, well, now we're waiting on a part, you're losing production, and you're potentially paying an overage on the part to have it rush shipped, rush manufactured. There's a lot of hidden expenses that can kind of go into that.
Yeah. Would you say would you say that that's like a shared definition within the industry, or do you think it's different customer to customer?
It can be to a point.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of times when we see the action area approach, it's with a customer who's grown a little bit in the industry, who understands the market a little bit better. I mean, especially if you're a facility that's running 3 shifts.
Sure.
I mean, if a machine, say for reference, is running 50 products a minute, that machine's down for an hour, you just lost 3,000 products. If it's down for 8 hours, you lost 24,000.
Yeah.
And that's an entire shift. And now if you multiply that by 3 shifts over a number of days, I mean, that can be a very, very significant loss. Where we see a lot of the reactive approach is generally for someone who's newer to the industry, a newer startup, who's just getting going, who's still kind of getting their feet under them. And kind of the realm of thought on that is, obviously preventative maintenance costs money, housing parts in your facility costs money. But you kind of have to do the math on what's more cost effective. Because if you're a newer startup, you generally have stricter delivery dates for your customers. You don't have as bulk of a supply of product sitting on your shelf. So you want to make those orders so you don't really have the time for unscheduled downtime. And you're probably only running 1 shift a day because you haven't grown to the point to run that second or third shift.
Specifically kind of continuing the conversation with your average customer. Like you said, you talk to customers all the time. When a customer calls about a downtime issue, what does that conversation typically look like? What are they experiencing, and what is usually the root of the cause, or is it truly different across the board?
It can range vastly.
Sure.
I mean, it can be everything from, they hired a new operator and they changed a setting on the machine and it's, making the machine go haywire and it's down. And then we're generally able to diagnose that a little bit faster and get them towards a resolution quicker.
Sure.
But if it's a major component failure, generally that's where, panic starts to set in because, obviously they're starting to feel the pressure of, their managers above them. They have an executive team to answer to, and they have customers to answer to outside of that.
Yeah. Do you think that typically when customers call in, do you find that they know what went wrong, or they're calling you to figure it out with them?
It's kind of dependent. Sometimes, with more experienced maintenance staff, they'll do quite a bit of troubleshooting before they get us on the phone. And then, on the newer side of things, if it's a newer company, their maintenance team might not be as proficient yet, and they might call us to help walk them through that troubleshooting step.
Yeah. In your opinion, is preventative service something customers come to you already understanding? You kind of dabbled in this, but I'm curious what the typical situation is, that they already understand it, or are they coming to you and it's something that you're introducing to them?
Kind of depends on the client. Some people understand it a little better than others, but if it's a frequent caller where, there are certain customers who we talk to on, almost a weekly or biweekly basis where, it could be, a simple thing, a checkup, anything like that. But if they're starting to have, say, regular issues, especially if they're having issues where, their operators might be changing things on the machine and that's halting production, we might recommend doing a preventative maintenance visit, to go through the machine with a fine-tooth comb and also reset up a baseline on the machine.
Yeah.
Because, our technicians not only are going to go through your machine, they're going to make sure it's running when they leave.
Yeah, exactly. How does operator training fit into the downtime conversation? Do most customers connect the two together, or are they treating it as separate issues or conversations?
It can be kind of case dependent as well, but it definitely does. It's almost a hidden factor in downtime because it's something you can't exactly plan for. You can plan for a lifespan of a electrical component or a mechanical component, but you can't really plan for downtime as far as human error. And one of the best things you can do is give your operators the tools they need to be successful in their roles, because it'll build confidence in your team, and overall it'll increase efficiency across your whole facility. Yeah. I mean, if you walk into work every day and you feel supported and you feel like, I know what I need to do here, you're going to do leaps and bounds more for that company than if you walk in and you feel like you're on Survivor Island and I'm not sure what I need to do. I don't know if I should hit this button or not. If you're scared to make an adjustment on the machine, it's going to affect the efficiency of that run. Yeah,
that makes sense. Do customers tend to think that training is a one-time off thing, or do you find it more of a trend that customers are finding it as an investment, like a consistent thing that they need to?
So when I originally started at Viking, it seemed like the mindset was more so at the start end of a project.
Okay.
We come in, we train the operators, and then they start running the machine and we leave. But it seems to be kind of flipping, that mentality seems to be kind of flipping towards continuous improvement almost. We're starting to get calls from customers who want to do more training and strengthen their staff a little bit better. Because, one of the best things you can do is, we'll come in and install the machine and we'll walk your staff through it. But there's a lot of moving parts happening for that individual that's going to be running that machine in that week, because you're getting a brand new piece of equipment and now you have to learn everything about it in a week or two.
Yep.
And now it's yours. If you schedule another training visit, say 3, 6 months or even a year later, well, now your team can think of all these questions that they come across as they're operating this piece of equipment, and we can come back and not only re-solidify what we taught them initially, but answer those questions that they might not feel confident in.
Yeah, 100%. And prevent possibly some of that downtime.
Absolutely.
And keep it consistent. That's good. I would love to talk about more on the real cost of downtime. What does unplanned downtime actually cost a packaging operation? And you kind of dabbled on it, but let's focus in on it. Can you give a real sense of what an hour, a shift, a day of downtime means pertaining to certain customers?
So, for different markets, it's a different cost factor, because obviously different products cost a different amount of money. But like for reference, like a vertical seal machine, 50 products a minute is pretty average for an intermittent process of that caliber. And for an hour, you're talking 3,000 products. For a shift, you're talking 24,000, and the number just keeps growing from there. So, if you're running 3 shifts and you have a full day down, that could be potentially a six-figure loss in revenue for certain customers, which, I mean, obviously is a huge hit to your facility. Not only counting the cost of delayed goods, you might be paying a concession to the customer that you're delivering those goods to. If there's a penalty on the delivery, you're paying for your staff to be there, but not being able to actually do their roles.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, the dominoes start falling and it starts getting expensive very fast.
Interesting. Beyond the direct production loss, what are the downstream effects customers often don't think about until it's too late?
There's a few different things with that. One is their customer relationships. I mean, production loss. If you're stressed, that means your customer's stressed, and whoever they're providing that product to is stressed, because everybody has somebody to answer to at the end of the day. And the other side of that too is your staff. If your staff is stressed every day because they're behind in production, they're no longer enjoying their working environment, and that's how you can get higher turnover rates. And obviously, if you're investing money in these people to make sure that they're comfortable and confident in their roles, if they get to the point where they're stressed enough to leave your facility, well, now all that investment is walking out at the door and you're starting over from square one.
Some companies keep a strong parts inventory on hand, while others avoid it, most likely to save money. How does that decision play out, especially for smaller operations that also can't afford downtime?
So I've seen both sides of that narrative. I've seen customers who want to have one of everything on the machine in their warehouse, which is a little bit on the extreme side. You don't necessarily need that.
But just to be careful.
And I've also seen customers who don't want to have any parts. They don't want to have any money sitting on their shelves because obviously it's an overhead cost because you're not using the components, but they're sitting there. But for smaller startups, every machine we sell here, we have recommended spare parts. We have two lists. We have parts that will need to be replaced at some point, and we have parts that are less frequently replaced, but they're still good to have on hand. And the reason we do that is not so we can sell you things. It's so that way you can stay running as efficiently as possible, because it's a lot cheaper for us to ship you that all out at once, either, when the machine's arriving and you can inventory it and everything like that, than it is for us to overnight it, or if we happen to not have something on our shelf because we had to ship them out to somebody else, now we have to do a rush order from one of our suppliers and then rush it to you after the fact.
At what point does part obsolescence become the deciding factor in whether to repair or replace equipment?
That can be very case dependent and business dependent. I mean, it depends on, your focus on growth, because obviously, as a machine, or a part becomes obsolete, basically what that is it's hitting the end of its life cycle. So it's hitting a certain age where a supplier is no longer manufacturing it. And for that's not something we necessarily control or can dictate. All of our machines, for the most part, use Allen Bradley components in the U.S. market, or Siemens components. As they phase out electrical components, they become harder and harder to source. And with that, there becomes extra expenses on sourcing them. Because now you're not buying them through a true supplier, you're buying them through a second party who happens to have them on their shelf. The thing with that is you need them, they have them. They can dictate the price for those, and you're going to be paying a premium for all those components going forward until they're no longer available. So generally the way I would have that conversation with a customer is very open and straightforward, because they need to make an informed business decision on if it's time to update and kind of rejuvenate their packaging facility. And the thing you gain with modern equipment is obviously if your machine's hitting the end of its life cycle, it could be potentially 20, 25 years old. Think about it, like a vehicle. Are you going to take a 25-year-old car across the country and expect no hiccups along the way? So with that, you gain efficiencies, you can gain overall speed, and if you want to grow your facility, there could be a potential maybe we upsize the line, change it around, so that way you can run more efficiently with less user input as technology modernizes.
That's good. I would love to kind of talk about preventative service a little bit. Walk us through what Viking Basic Preventative Service Program, what our program looks like in practice. What does it include? How often does it happen? And who's involved on both sides?
Sure. Viking Basic's Preventative Maintenance Program, what they gain there is, one, you get a discount on the service for the technician coming out to visit your facility, and you get a discount on any spare parts that come from that preventative maintenance service. So you save money on two fronts. So what that kind of entails is one of our technicians will visit your facility and they'll go through your machines top to bottom. They'll talk to your staff to understand what issues they've been having up to this point. If there's anything they've noticed that they've been struggling with recently, because that can kind of allow us to do a little bit of root cause analysis of what might potentially be causing that issue. We'll go through all the mechanicals of components of the machine. If we find something that's failed and you happen to have the part in stock, we'll swap it out right then and there. If you don't have something in stock, but it looks like it's failing, we'll get it on order for you. So that way you have it coming in and we can either schedule another visit for us to come out and install those components, or we can walk your maintenance staff through what they're going to need to do when they arrive. We'll go through the spare parts inventory in your facility to make sure that you have everything you need on hand. And if you're missing something, we'll make recommendations based off of what we see. So that way, if you do have a part fail on your machine, you'll have it in stock and you'll be ready to address it, or even be able to schedule the downtime. Say a holiday's coming up and you decide to shut the production down for a half a day, so that way you can do maintenance on the machines. Perfect time to do it.
Our technicians work on this equipment every single day, while in-house maintenance techs are spread across everything in the plant, most likely. Why does that specialization matter so much when it comes to catching problems early?
Basically, the difference there is you can be proficient in working on a machine, but it doesn't necessarily make you an expert on that machine. I mean, our technicians do everything from the setup here at our facility to following them into the field to initialize them with the customers. They've turned every nut and bolt on that machine and they know them inside and out. And this might be the first time your maintenance staff sees this problem. Our technicians have seen it 100 times because this is their bread and butter. It's what they do every day and what we train them to do. And even if it's something, in a rare case, if it's something that one of our technicians hasn't seen, we have a large team of technicians here that all communicate. Just because that one person hasn't seen it, guarantee somebody else has, and that answer is going to come much faster and it's going to get solved at a much more rapid pace.
That's true, because we have a team of 20 plus, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That's impressive. How do customers typically respond when you first bring up a preventative service agreement? Is there resistance or no? But if there is, what is usually behind that?
So generally, if there is resistance, it's due to the cost of the service. And generally what we try to kind of reiterate to them and, solidify in that relationship is, one, you're saving money on the visit because it is something we truly do recommend. So we discounted the labor rate on it, and we also discount the parts on it, like we spoke about a little bit earlier. And we just kind of try to explain the overall efficiency value of the visit, because obviously it's better to take that actionary approach we've been discussing versus that reactive approach. It's better for your team as well because they have the opportunity with an expert on site to ask those questions and to feel supported. I can't tell you how many times I walk into a plant, and when I used to travel regularly, there were a lot of times where I regularly was the one who visited a certain customer, and you start to develop that relationship where when I walk in there, they know me by name.
Is there a version of preventative service that customers try to run internally that falls short? What's typically missing when they try to manage it themselves?
I've seen this before where, the maintenance team tries to run the preventative maintenance internally. They try to make sure they're staying on top of the machines. But obviously, when you're running a full facility, you get busy. And they notice something on the machine and they'll say, I need to fix this. I need to order parts for this. But then a different component in their facility goes down completely, and now the entire shift switches to that item. Well, now this hit the back burner and it wasn't documented. Because it's super easy for things to slip your mind. And then all of a sudden there is a major mechanical failure. And there might be a series of mechanical failures. We had a customer who had a very similar instance to that happen. And then they had us come in for a preventative maintenance visit. And I went through 5 machines at their facility and found mechanical parts that were starting to fail on all 5. And they didn't have the parts in stock either, which could have potentially led to days of downtime that they didn't have in their schedule.
So do you think it's like, you've dabbled on this a little bit, is it a knowledge gap, like a bandwidth issue, or just documentation, or is it all of it combined?
I think it's kind of a combination of all. Because obviously they only know so much about the machines. They don't build them.
That's true.
for us, when we do a preventative maintenance visit, we train our technicians on what to be looking for on these machines because we know the components that could potentially fail, especially in a certain life cycle.
Yep.
And that's something that can be kind of hard to communicate to a customer over the phone is, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
To an untrained eye, what are they looking for?
100%. Yeah.
Versus if you have somebody who comes in and this is what they do every single day of their professional career, they know exactly what they're looking for. They know the warning signs of if a component's starting to fail or if something's not running as optimal as it should, if something's starting to lag. I mean, there's a plethora of different components on our machines, from electrical to pneumatic to mechanical, bearings, belts. I mean, there's a ton of things that you need to be aware of and look at that, to an untrained eye, they could miss.
That makes sense.
They might see a few of them, but they might miss the other 4 or 5. For example, our machines are fairly easy to interact with. We try to engineer them and manufacture them in a way that they're operator friendly. Because I'm sure everyone's had something that they've built in their life. You get a piece of furniture from a store I'm not going to name, and it has a direction booklet that's 100 pages long. It's not fun to build. Yeah. We try to make them a lot simpler than that. But for example, if you go to a doctor, you're sick, something's wrong. You might go on Google and try to self-medicate, but we all know what those results generally lead to. It's a rabbit hole of, we'll try this, we'll try this, we'll try this, and try this. Now the problem spans on for a couple months and you still don't feel good. So you go to the doctor, you walk in, and they've seen the problem 100 times because it's what they do every day. And they're able to give you a prescription that day. You go pick it up from your pharmacy and you start feeling better by the end of the week. And then that light bulb clicks on of, I should have just done this from the start.
That's a great example. That would be me. I want to go to the expert and have him tell me exactly what to do or how I need to fix it.
100%.
That's good. Talking a little bit more about operator training and knowledge retention, turnover is one of the biggest challenges in the industry. Can you walk us through what happens to a packaging line's performance when the one person who knows how to run a machine takes vacation, leaves unexpectedly, or walks out the door?
Yep, I've seen that a number of times in facilities. You put, especially in newer facilities where you might not have a huge staff, starting out, and you put so much time and money into investing in a single operator who's great. They're super efficient. They know everything about your machine. They're able to come in and rock every day. Well, the other thing with that is that makes that person very valuable, and it generally builds options, and they might decide they want to make a career change. They want to make a lifestyle adjustment. They might want to move.
Things happen.
Say they decide they don't like the Wisconsin winters and they want to go live on a coastline.
Who would say that?
I know, crazy people. But it is kind of a hidden factor in plant efficiency, because if you don't invest in more than just one person, well, now when all that knowledge walks out of the door, none of it was retained. And if that's the person, that's your main person, a lot of times, if you have people working with them, they're relying on them for almost all of the hard instances. All the hard questions are coming through this one person.
Yeah, that's so true.
So getting the rest of your staff more involved in the day-to-day production, cross-training, making sure that you're investing not only in that one person, that there's multiple people, going through a training visit. Just because you had one and one person went through it doesn't mean they're going to be able to kind of recreate that with the rest of your staff, because that's not what they specialize in. Versus if you have reoccurring visits with new staff members, where then they get to go through the experience as well and strengthen their skill set. Well, now instead of having, one sharp knife in the box, you have a Swiss Army knife of all different kinds of tools that you can use to keep your plant successful.
What does good operator training for a packaging line actually cover? And is it primarily about running the equipment, or does it go deeper into maintenance, troubleshooting, and warning signs or signals?
So that can be kind of bespoke to the client, because in the industry, there's a range of mentalities as far as what an operator's duties are.
Okay.
There are manufacturers who want their operators to come in and they want them to start and stop the machine, load product in, but they don't want them to use tools. And there are other facilities where their operators might almost double as maintenance staff, or, a light version of maintenance staff, where they'll fix minor things with the machines and then rely on their maintenance team for major failures. And it can be kind of bespoke to the client you're visiting. But my approach to training has always been making sure they understand the theory of the machine, that they get kind of a well-rounded perspective of what the machine does. Because if you understand how it's supposed to work and why the components work the way they do, when things start to fail, it might help you kind of diagnose that why. Okay, well, I know this is supposed to work this way. I know what goes into making it work this way. What's not happening in that process to cause that downtime or the issue you're seeing. So our approach to training generally starts with going through all the assemblies of the machine, making sure you know what all the different parts do. Because, I mean, think about it like your car. Assuming you've been driving for quite a while.
Yeah.
Do you know what all the parts of your car do?
No.
Absolutely not.
Not me.
So if you don't know what they do or where they are or what they are, if something fails, how are you going to fix it?
Yeah, that's good. Do you think that that's the difference between a well-trained operator in comparison to like an untrained one that doesn't know beyond running the machine? Like that might be the key of what they need.
I definitely think so, because if you don't understand the fundamentals of the machine, you'll never be able to operate it at your fullest potential.
True.
So, we try to make sure you understand what everything is, how all the controls work, all the buttons on the screen. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of numbers on the screen. If you don't know what that number correlates to, how do you know how to make it better?
You've observed a real difference in atmosphere and performance between facilities where operators have been trained well versus others where they haven't been. What does that actually look like in practice?
So in practice, I mean, I've gone into facilities where the operators have had little to no training over their entire time with that company. And generally, there can be a little bit more of a negative cloud in the atmosphere, so to speak, because if you're not confident in your job, you're not going to have a positive attitude. If you walk in and you second guess every decision you make because you're not sure if it's the right one, you're never truly going to feel, like you're performing at your best ability. And, for a lot of people, myself included in that, if I feel like I'm not sure of a decision that I'm making, it's going to affect my overall mood for that day.
Yeah.
Versus if you come in and you get the opportunity to ask all your questions and learn about the machine and really understand what it is your role is and how the equipment you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis works.
Yeah.
I mean, it just built so much confidence. And I mean, I can see it when we finish up training classes. You can see the smile on their faces when they, the gears start to turn and everything starts to click and the questions start to make sense.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to watch that kind of knowledge growth in people.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that confidence is huge, especially in your technicians, under pressure decision making and trying to fix it on the spot. I can imagine that confidence would help them, lead them to be quicker on their feet and know how to go about it.
Absolutely. I mean, because if you're not sure of something, that'll show.
Yep.
You can put on a false confidence face as much as you want to, but at the end of the day, if you're not sure of it in the back of your head, it's going to affect your performance. Versus if you go into a facility, you've seen the problem because you've been trained on how to address it. Well, now you're going to be able to attack that problem and drive it to a much quicker resolution. It's just going to be better for everyone involved.
Yep. That's good. How do you handle ongoing training for customers? Is it typically a one-time event at commissioning, or do you make the case right off the bat for reoccurring touch points? We kind of dabbled on that, but what are you advocating for when you're talking to customers?
I'd advocate for reattacks, get that initial training, because obviously you need to know how to run your machine. But, maybe inside of that first year, schedule, a quarterly or bi-quarterly revisit where somebody comes back in and retouches on everything with your staff, because repetition builds retention. I mean, that's true for anything you do in life. For a golf swing, they say it takes 1,000 swings for that to become muscle memory.
That's true.
I'm not saying we have to visit your facility 1,000 times for your team to understand the machine by any means. But what I am saying is if we get to come in and build that relationship with them, not only do they now have an advocate that they can reach out to if they have future questions, because we do have an email where they can shoot us an email, they can give us a call, and they already know us then. And they can call and say, hey, this is what I'm having issues with. I don't understand this. I know you talked about it. What am I missing? And we can reattack it that way as well. It lets them build relationships with the OEM so they don't just see our name on the machine and say, oh, that's Viking.
Yep.
They put a face to that name.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's good. That's kind of thinking towards the future, which is leading into my next question. If you had to name the one thing you wish every customer understood about the relationship between preventative services, operating training, and uptime before they buy a line, what would it be?
Be actionable instead of reactive.
Okay.
I mean, that relationships, you're always going to be in a better situation if you're taking action versus if you're reacting to a problem.
It's like a mind shift change.
It is, because I mean, like, if you can go into the day and you control every variable of that day as to the best of your ability, well, now you're controlling the situation, you're controlling the downtime, you have control over the budget, you have control over everything. If you're reactive, you have very little control, and that's where you can start to spiral. That's where people get frustrated, tempers flare, and everybody has a very bad day because if you're stressed out because something's out of your control and there's not much you can do to fix it outside of waiting, you know, it's just going to make a worse situation for everybody that's involved.
Yeah. Is there a perspective on this topic that the industry tends to get wrong or that just doesn't get talked about enough?
So it falls back into being reactive versus actionary. I mean, and that falls for preventative maintenance, for training, for, I mean, every component of what you do in a day-to-day in manufacturing. If you're actionable, you're controlling that entire environment. I mean, at the end of the day, to a point, you can control your staff's attitude because if you're investing into your equipment, into your staff, into your team, like everything is going to be better because the staff's going to feel supported. They're going to feel like, you know what, this is a place I want to retire from. You know, that's kind of what I gained out here at Viking. They invest in their team, and it's a great place to work. If you feel like that every day, it's going to motivate you more and more to grow with the company and be a part of their success rather than just, well, I'm here to collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
Same thing with your machines. If you invest money into those machines, whether it's having parts on your inventory, having this machine serviced, PM supported, that machine's going to run a lot more efficiently. You know, it's same as, you know, back to your car.
Yeah.
If you take it in for its service intervals, you're going to have a lot less issues than if you decide, well, do I really need an oil change every 5,000 miles, or can I stretch it out to 15?
Yeah.
You're going to put a ton more wear and tear on it, and you're going to shorten that whole life cycle. And that's where we get to that, you know, $1 million question is, when is it time to upgrade? If you keep that machine maintained and in good working order, you're going to be able to stretch that life cycle far and wide beyond where someone who just runs it every day and never cleans it, never PMs it, never replaces anything unless it's catastrophically failed.
Yeah. Well, now you got me thinking like, gosh, do I need to go take my car in for an oil change? I think I just did that, but now I'm like, oh, I need to be on top of that. Thank you for the reminder. Well, that is basically everything that I have for you, Hunter. Is there any final thoughts that you might have for someone who's been putting off preventative maintenance or even just that conversation or hasn't yet made the case internally for better operating training?
I think my final takeaway for that would be, you know, if you've been putting it off, maybe discuss it with your team. You know, obviously it's kind of a bespoke decision in a lot of ways where it fits into your environment. But I mean, if you're an operator who feels like you have questions, be your own best advocate. If you're a manager who wants to strengthen your team, advocate for them. If you're a maintenance technician who wants to see your machine perform at its best level, advocate that maybe it's time to have somebody come in and look at it. There's really never a bad time to start, whether you've been putting it off for a number of years or you just got your first machine installed last month.
Sure.
There's never a bad time to start. It's never too late.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Hunter. I really enjoyed this conversation.
No
I appreciate
problem.
it.
It's been fun.
How can any of our listeners find you online? Are you on LinkedIn or anything like that?
I am on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can also find me on Viking's website in a couple spots. We have our technical support number here at Viking. And we also have our technical support email here at Viking.
Yes, that's good. Well, thank y'all so much for listening to today's episode. We are actually going to be taking a break for the summertime when it comes to wrapping things up, but you can catch us in the fall time for season 2, episode 1. So we'll keep you in the loop for that. You can also find us on vikingmasic.com. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. For any questions you may have or any research you're looking up, that's where you can find us. Thank y'all for joining us today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Wrapping Things Up. Make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Stay up to date by checking out Viking Masic on social media. Thanks for watching.